So today's topic is going to be something I get excited about fairly often, and that's going to be the Pioneer format. Now, Spirits is pretty good in Pioneer, which is why I'm always excited about this format, but a lot of people have had some apprehension about jumping into the format because, it's a dying format, it's a dead format, COVID killed Pioneers, so on and so forth, right? But Wizards has straight up nipped that in the bud. And the way they did that is by putting out these Challenger decks. Now, for anybody who's not aware of what a Challenger deck is, these were decks that they made for previous Standard and Modern formats, where they would put a pre-constructed deck of 60 cards plus a full 15 card sideboard that you could just buy at your local gaming store and jam at FNM the same day. You didn't have to put any more effort in than that if you didn't want to. But these are also relevant tournament format decks. So if you do want to use the Challenger decks as kind of a starting point and level them up into a fully fleshed out competitive archetype, you can do that too. Both options exist and they're totally valid, whether you just want to jam the deck a couple of times a month or whether you plan on making it the most teched out thing possible and jamming it all the way up to like a Grand Prix or whatever whenever we can have humans again. Both options are totally valid. Speaking of tournament ready archetypes, the other three decks are going to be Burn, Black-White Auras, and Lotus Field combo, all of which have been very good decks the entire time Pioneer's been around and have put up good consistent results too, so pretty sweet times. Oh, speaking of which, so the person who gave me the idea to make a full video about this Challenger deck was actually Bryant Cook, one of my boys, and he happens to be one of the most foremost experts on Lotus Field combo. He's also put out a video just like this with a description of the Lotus Field combo deck, a tutorial, and some gameplay video. So if you want to watch that too, there's going to be a link right in the video description, so make sure to check that out. So about the Blue-White Spirits deck, what you want to do with this deck is attack your opponent with a bunch of flying creatures. That is what Spirits does. It is very good at it. The upsides to Spirits is that you get a lot of good creatures at low costs that help both disrupt the game while also killing your opponent with a relatively quick clock. That is the job of Spirits. And this deck has a lot of great tools to help you do that. So if you've never played Spirits before, the first thing you're probably trying to figure out by looking at this deck list is, why in the world am I so excited about being able to play this? It's a bunch of underpowered flyers that have a couple of counter spells. Why is this deck actually good? And the reason is that Spirits is one of the best aggressive decks in the entire Pioneer format, and it is the one true tempo deck in the entire format, and it fills basically 1.5 really good roles in this format. So a lot of Pioneer is creature based. There's a lot of combat. Attacking and blocking matters a lot, and there's only a few combo decks in the format, all of which revolve around resolving spells. Spirits is one of the best decks in the entire format at preventing opponents from resolving spells. We have access to counter spells, we have access to creatures that are counter spells, and we have access to a clock that needs to be respected. So we have the ability to compete in a world of aggressive decks while still beating up on the mid-range, control, and combo decks of the format, giving us a relatively unique spot within the world of Pioneer. We're going to actually take a look at the format challenge deck card by card so that we see exactly what comes in this box and why I think it has a lot of the tools necessary to win games. So here we have the actual contents of the Pioneer Challenge deck, and you will see that every single creature in the deck has flying. So that's going to be the first thing we notice about playing Spirits. Everything in our deck has flying, and most other creatures in the format don't, which means that as far as combat goes, we generally dictate the rules of who gets to block and who doesn't, which also means we dictate who attacks and who doesn't. And when you're playing a creature versus creature matchup, if you get to make the rules, you're usually winning that game. That's a great time for spirits, even though our creatures are undersized compared to basically everybody else in the format. The other cool thing that we have access to here is a lot of ways to protect our own game plan while actually getting our opponents dead via attacking. We've got 4 copies of Lofty Denial, which normally just counters a spell for unless they pay 1, but since our entire deck is full of flyers, you actually get to proc the second half of that, which means they have to pay 4 instead of 1. So it's basically a 2-mana counter spell almost all the time. We also have 2 copies of Spell Pierce to make their life a little more difficult. Our spirits also protect themselves from removal. We have 4 copies of Rattle Chain to give another spirit hexproof at instant speed. We have Spell Queller to straight up kidnap a whole spell. We have Selfless Spirit to give our whole squad indestructible, and we have Mausoleum Wanderer to counter any instants or sorceries that our opponents are trying to use to really give us a hard time. Our creatures also get really big really fast. We've got both Supreme Phantom and Empyrean Eagle to give all of our creatures +1/+1, and Watcher of Spheres itself pulls double duty here, even though it's not a spirit. First and foremost, it makes our creatures cheaper, which means if we get to untap with a Watcher of Spheres in play, our plays get extremely explosive because you just get to play all of your cards for 1 mana less. Like, you get to play your Supreme Phantom for 1 instead of 2, and that's a really big deal. It also gets a lot bigger too. So anytime you play another creature with flying while Watcher's on the table, that Watcher's going to get bigger too. So sometimes that 2-mana 2/2 is really a 2-mana 5/5. So your opponents just really need to respect the clocks that you're able to put on the table. We also have a 1-of Brazen Borrower here, and this is one of the best cards in the entire format. So there's a reason it's like $20 to $25 green cards. So yeah, you get Petty Theft to bounce something, you get a 3/1 flash flying threat, and even though Brazen Borrower is not actually a spirit, let's be real, 3/1 flash flying is about as spirit as a spirit can get. So we've got a lot of really good cards here, and the combination of creatures plus counterspells makes it so that we function as really the one true tempo deck of Pioneer. There isn't really another tempo deck in this format, which means that we are unique in that we can help compete with the aggro decks, even though most of them are faster than us, but also we get to beat up on the mid-range control and combo decks of the format, putting spirits in a pretty sweet place. Also, the sideboard that they put up for this deck makes it so that we actually have a pretty respectable plan. We've got some copies of Isolate, Light of Hope, Seal Away, Silk Wrap, and Devout Decree, because whoever made this pre-constructed deck knows that we have a pretty hard time with low-to-the-ground creatures. So they made sure to give us lots of ways to get small creatures from our opponents off of the table. We also have another 2 copies of Spell Pierce to make the full 4, and 3 Aether Gust here. So we've got a lot of great ways to make sure that we're able to deal with what our opponent's doing. And I think that's a great place to be. They made it so that this deck is able to compete with the aggro decks, which we do have a hard time with, while still making sure we're able to beat up on the spell-based deck that we're just naturally so great against. So this deck is just primed to beat up on lots of people. One of the coolest things about spirits is that there's like a million different ways to build it. So the builds that you've probably heard of most are going to be blue-white spirits and Bant spirits, because those are the ones that A, are most popular, and B, you've probably already heard of from just any modern environment because both decks exist there. Those 2 decks are very powerful and very good within the world of Pioneer, especially Bant, because Collected Company is just, it's really powerful. However good you think it is in Modern, it's better in Pioneer. So the first build we'll talk about in a little detail is going to be Bant Spirits, and this will be the 3-color version of Spirits that includes Collected Company. Now, Bant Spirits is easily the most powerful version of the Spirits deck that is available in Pioneer. However, it is also the most costly. To actually build this deck, it'll end up being a grand total of like $350 because like Collected Company is a little over $20 a piece. The other two spell quellers are going to run you 12 to 15 bucks. Skyclave apparitions are pretty expensive and like $7 or $8 a piece. And all of these things are going to add up, especially when you consider the fact that the mana base is really nowhere near what we need to see as far as a Bant list goes here. We'll see that there's Botanical Sanctums, there's Hallowed Fountains, there's Mana Confluences. There's a lot of relatively expensive lands that we're going to want to purchase if we want to build the Bant version of this deck. But the upsides are huge. You get to play all 4 copies of Mausoleum Wanderer, where the Challenger deck starts you out with 2. You get to play Skyclave Apparition, which is probably the best white card we've seen printed since, Stoneforge Mystic? And you get the other 2 spell quellers out of this as well. So there is some very real reward to building yourself into Bant. Just make sure that we do know that it's going to be a pretty large purchase. The only other real downside to Bant, strategy-wise, is that the 3-color mana base can be a little bit painful, and this does matter against the aggressive decks. Now, we do get to play the best lands available to the 3 colors here, but we are still playing cards like Hallowed Fountain, Breeding Pool, Temple Garden, and Mana Confluence, all of which can do damage to yourself. When you're playing against decks like Mono Red Burn, that can matter quite a bit. So next up is going to be Azorius Spirits, or Blue-White Spirits, and this is going to be the really tried and true version of Spirits that plays the most tempo-like game in the entire format of Pioneer. You still get to play a lot of the same creatures that the Bant deck does, with the upsides that you're spending like $150 less, and instead of Collected Company, you get to play counterspells. You have Lofty Denials as a 4-of in the main to complement your Mausoleum Wanderers and your Spell Quellers. So the combo decks of the format and the control decks of a format have a really hard time dealing with Azorius, where they might actually be okay with dealing with Bant because there's a lot more counterspells in this deck. You also get to play a 2-color mana base, which means that you're taking a lot less damage from your lands. Here there's only the 1 copy of Mana Confluence and the 4 copies of Hallowed Fountain in this deck, and that's a lot less painful than dealing with, 5 or 6 shocks, 2 copies of your Mana Confluences, and then maybe not even finding the appropriate color when you need it. So Blue-White is going to be a lot more smooth than Bant, but a lot less powerful because you don't get to play Collected Company. Speaking of the mana base, you'll notice here that neither the Challenger deck or the final result here has any copies of Port Town. If you own that card, burn it. It's bad. Don't play it. And if you do play it and I see you playing it, I will tell you that I think you're on drugs for playing it. It's not great. The next list we'll talk about is going to be Mono Blue Snow Spirits. And this is going to be the most low to the ground version of Spirits available. So you have the best aggro plan, I believe, with this. You get to play a full 12 1-drops, 4 Ascendant Spirits, 4 Mausoleum Wanderers, and 4 Spectral Sailors. You get to play the same good 2-drops that everybody else plays, Rattlechain, Shacklegeist, and Supreme Phantom, and then you get to play a second Brazen Borrower in this list. This list has the upside of just being the cheapest one to buy into, especially since you already have one of the expensive cards in the Brazen Borrower after buying the Challenger deck. So the entire cost of the deck is like $150, and once you get the Challenger deck, you've actually obtained almost all of this already. Like, you already have 2 of the 4 Mausoleum Wanderers, you already have 1 of the 2 Brazen Borrowers, you already have the Supreme Phantoms, Rattle Chains, you have 3 of the Shacklegeists, you have all the counter spells and stuff that you would need. The only real costs here are going to be the second Brazen Borrower. The Snow-Covered Islands, I think this graphic is a little misleading. You don't have to pay $2 each for Snow-Covered Islands. I think they're a little closer to like $1, $1.25. But they do add up, so that's going to be something that we want to mention. And this list gets to play 2 copies of Faceless Haven since you're only playing 1 color. And you'll notice that no other build of Spirits gets to play with creature lands, so that is a very real benefit to playing Mono Blue. The other real benefit strategy-wise to playing Mono Blue is that since you're playing a 1-color deck, this is going to be the only version of Spirits that straight up does not damage itself using its lands. And when you're playing in a format with a lot of aggressive archetypes, not taking unnecessary damage is a really big deal. Like when you're playing against Burn, you just know that your life total starts at 20 instead of sometimes starting at 18 because you needed to play a Hallowed Fountain. That doesn't really exist in mono blue, so you will sometimes have that little bit of a leg up. You can play I'm not going to go so far as to say recklessly, but you can play a little less safely since you don't have to worry about your mana base helping your opponent along. The downsides here are, you're playing a one color deck, so your options are limited as far as what you can do. Even though you're playing a bunch of counter spells in a very reactive game with mono blue, you still don't get to play Spell Queller because you're only playing one color. You also don't get to play the fantastic white cards out of the sideboard, so that is something that we really want to pay attention to. For example, there's no Portable Hole here. Instead, we're playing cards like Mystic Subdual to help deal with our opponent's creatures. So if you're okay with that, I think mono blue is a great route to go with. And the last build we'll talk about is going to be Simic Spirits. Now, Simic Spirits gives us a lot of the Curious Obsession gameplay that mono blue does, except you actually get more of that from Simic since you get to play Sixth Sense on top of Curious Obsession. So this is going to be hands down the best version of Spirits for drawing cards. You also get to play Blossoming Defense to help protect your creatures from any kind of targeted removal. So that's going to be a really great way to make sure that your creatures get Obsession on them and keep it on them. You also get to play some sweet cards out of the sideboard that mono blue does not have access to, like Permeating Mass, Run Afoul, and even Nightpack Ambusher, so you really have kind of the best flash game available to the entire Spirits archetype. The only downsides to Simic are that you're playing green, which means you're not playing white. So your sideboard options are going to be a lot worse against the aggressive decks. Playing cards like Permeating Mass are not the same as playing cards like Portable Hole. Also, unlike mono blue, you're only playing 8 1-drops instead of 12, so even though you are playing more Curious Obsessions, you're playing fewer creatures to put those obsessions onto, so you need to be a little more careful with your mulligans for Simic Spirits. But if you can navigate that, this is hands down the most oppressive versions of Spirits available. Alright, so we got round 1 of gameplay. We did not take the die roll, but we do have a basic island and a basic plains, a couple of 1-drops, a couple of 2-drops, and a counterspell against some kind of Yorion deck. So this is going to be a hand we keep, and let's see what our opponent is playing, which version of Yorion something. So they play a Ketria Triumph, which makes me think that they are most likely just some kind of Niv Mizzet deck. And that actually is a deck that we have a reasonable amount of game against. So what we're going to do here is simply play our Spectral Sailor at end of turn, untap, and here we can just kind of get to attacking. This is pretty sweet. So we'll go ahead and turn our friend sideways. They take their lovely 1, and I get to just go ahead and kind of unload with this Watcher of the Spheres. Now, next turn, assuming that my Watcher gets to untap, what I'll be able to do is, okay, that's fine. I'll be able to play my island and play Supreme Phantom while still holding up a Lofty Denial, enabling my creatures to be really good here. And that'll be a great way to make sure that even though we're on the draw, we should get to attack them for quite a bit. So the hard part, of course, is going to be actually getting to untap with this Watcher of the Spheres, because our opponent's deck is usually chock full of removal. So let's see what happens. Savai Triumph, okay. Oh, I think we're actually going to get away with one, y'all. So I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to jam the Supreme Phantom, leaving up my counterspell, and let's see what happens here. Sick. So our Watcher of the Spheres is going to get a little bit bigger because a creature with flying came into play. Our Spectral Sailor is going to be bigger because a Spirit's in the table. And we are off to the races. Alright. So this is looking so far so good. Get blooped, opponent. And they have another Omen of the Seas. We don't particularly care about that. Now our only real job is to just make sure that our creatures that are already on the table stay on the table. Other than that, we don't really want to pay too much attention, or rather, we don't need to pay too much attention to what our opponent's doing. They can play another white source and slide that into a Supreme Verdict. So if they have exactly that, that's pretty annoying. It's a chain to the rocks. Okay. That's actually okay. If they chain to the rocks and they target the Supreme Phantom, I don't know that I actually mind that all that much. Either way, I'll be able to go ahead and put a Spectral Sailor into play at end of turn, and then just kind of like resume the attacks here. So I am actually kind of okay with that. It does reduce our clock by a lot, but Trial of Ambition, I'm actually going to let them do that because I can just ship the Spectral Sailor, play another one at end of turn, and Trial of Ambition by itself doesn't do too much until they already have like a Yorion on the table. So here I can just play another Spectral Sailor at end of turn, untap, and then just kind of make them face down the exact same problems. Even better since we drew an Empyrean Eagle. Empyrean Eagle is creatures with flying, not just spirits, so Watcher is actually going to be a 4-4 instead of a 3-3. That's really good for us because it takes them down to exactly a 2-turn clock, going from 12 to 6. So good times us, and we still have our counterspell on deck. So they've got to do quite a bit of work to get up out of this. And an Omnath is... oh, Incarnation. Alright, well, we're going to go ahead and counter that. I want no part of dealing with that. And there we go, we got game 1. So we're going to be playing against Niv with the Incarnation stuffs. So what we want to do here is put in Spell Pierces and Aether Gusts. The reason for Aether Gust is because a lot of what they're doing to us is going to be red and green. So the Incarnation itself is green, Bring to Light is green, Niv Mizzet itself is both red and green. So there's going to be a lot of reasons that Aether Gust might actually have a lot of text in this matchup. Here, I don't really care about Remorseful Cleric since they're not playing things that are focusing on the graveyard. And I've got 3 more cards to take out. And I believe Shacklegeist is going to be the least likely to actually affect anything here, because this is not like blue-black control. It's not like this deck actually tries to play any Shark Typhoons or anything else. So for our sideboarding choices here, we're just going to put into Spell Pierce, 3 Aether Gust, take out some Remorseful Clerics, and take out some Shacklegeists. And then we'll go ahead and submit. Another card for consideration here is Light of Hope, which is not that bad because it can destroy target enchantment, but the entire point of our opponent's deck is to play a bunch of enchantments that get value once they enter the battlefield. So by the time we're casting Light of Hope, the card's already generated its value, and it's usually a little too late for that card to have too much text, which is why I didn't bother siding that in. But that is a real point of consideration in some of your games. This one's kind of a pooper. So we can't really keep one-landers here. And this one's not that bad. So I'll be putting back one of these basic planes, and I'm not terribly sad about that. I already don't even have a 1-drop that I actually wanted to play anyway, so the fact that our Temple of Enlightenment's going to come into play tapped doesn't even really hurt my feelings that much. Okay, I was going to say that story does change if I draw a 1-drop, but here, let's see what we draw. Oh look, a 1-drop. Well, I will put that on top. And let's see what our opponent comes at us with here. Is this just like a Sylvan Caryatid, or is it something else? Oh, okay. Nellia's Presence. So that's just going to make that land into every color, which is pretty good for them, but that's not something that we would have countered if we had open mana anyway, so who cares? So here, we're going to go ahead and be able to flash in Spectral Sailor. At the same time, we can hold up Spell Pierce. And then the following turn, we can untap and have access to Supreme Phantom or Rattle Chains holding up the same Spell Pierces. Fibblethip. That's pretty sweet. We don't care, but it's pretty sweet. That actually is new to me. I have not seen that in these decks. Oh, they missed their land drop. Oh, poor opponent. Ooh, Mausoleum Wanderer. That's nice. So we're going to play our land, get our attack on here. And what I'm actually going to do post-combat is play my Mausoleum Wanderer, and that does 2 things. A, it does not tell them that I have a Rattle Chains in hand, but I can also keep up mana for Rattle Chain, Spell Pierce, and Lofty Denial. So really whatever our opponent's going to try to do, we generally have it covered, especially since they're kind of stuck on a land here. Now, Trial of Mission, I am going to just use a Spell Pierce on. I'm going to go ahead and waste that extra mana that I have, and I'm not going to cry too hard about it. The other options I had here are either just letting Spectral Sailor die or using Lofty Denial, and that way, next turn with the lands I had access to Supreme Phantom plus Spell Pierce, but I think I still want to just use my worst card, which is Spell Pierce, on the trial, and allow myself to just kind of untap, give myself the chance to draw a land, and then just kind of be doing the best thing. So here I am going to do this and just put up a bunch of pressure. Mausoleum Wanderer is going to be a 3, Sailor's 2, they take 5. And even though we drew an Aether Gust instead of either a land or a 1-drop, I'm still not sad about having used Spell Pierce on that trial. Okay, looks like they probably have another trial. What's happening here? They do have another trial. Okay, that's fine, because our Spectral Sailor is going to be the one to bite it here. So we can live that. They can't really attack Fibblethip into Supreme Phantom, so we're going to get to untap here. And now we have double Lofty Denial up, and the saddest draw here was in fact the Aether Gust, but honestly, we've got a Rattle Chains to protect against spot removal, Lofty Denial to protect against anything we happen to particularly care about, Aether Gust just in case, I don't know, something, and this is a pretty sweet spot for us to be, not gonna lie. So they have an Oath of Kaya. So Oath of Kaya is gonna try to deal 3 damage to this Supreme Phantom, and they're gonna gain 3 life, and I'm gonna get to protect it with this Rattle Chains, so we don't need to use a Lofty Denial. I get to develop my board while protecting ourselves from what they're trying to do to us. So this is just gonna be like relatively sad times for our poor opponent here. So Rattle Chains gives it Hexproof, Oath of Kaya gets really sad, Fibblethip still can't attack. Whether or not they play a land doesn't really matter to us. And we get to untap and nug them for at least 6. Okay, so it looks like it is in fact going to be 6. So they go to 3, and we still have double Counterspell up here, so they're going to have a pretty difficult time getting out of this. Even with this 4th land they drew. They can play exactly a Supreme Verdict, which we can't counter, and that can get pretty annoying. Almost anything else we're pretty much okay with. So they have a Chain to the Rocks. Chain to the Rocks I actually will use a Lofty Denial on, because if they go ahead and play something like a Deafening Clarion or some other sweeper for 3 mana, I've got Mausoleum Wanderer to help counter that, so I'm not terribly worried about them being able to follow up. So I'm going to go ahead, cast Lofty Denial on this Chain to the Rocks. They can't currently pay 4, so that's just going to get countered. And let's see what, if anything, they really have to follow up with. Nothing. Sick. So that's going to be 1-0 us. We got to beat up on a pretty high-powered Yorion deck, and yeah, y'all see the combination of creatures plus counterspells doing the work. Alright, so we got round 2 as the Challenger deck here. We are going to take this hand away and take a new 6, but we are off to a pretty sweet start. We are 1-0, which is nice. And this hand is much better. So our opponent did not mull. Yes, they did. I'm sorry. They mulled, we mulled, everybody's sad about our hands, but 3 lands, 2 creatures, a counterspell, we can't really be too sad about the way this hand is shaping up. So Lair of the Hydra, so looks like they're either playing Tribal Elves or like a mono green Devotion deck most likely. So what I'm gonna do here is play an island, and with the island, if they attack with Llanowar Elves, I actually will flash in Spectral Sailor and block. So let's see what ends up actually happening here. Steel Leaf Champion. This is not going to be good times for us. The upside to this matchup, though, is what they gave us out of the Challenger deck they did give us a bunch of ways to deal with creatures in games 2 and 3. Like, there are isolates in the sideboard, there's silk wraps, there's aether gusts that happen to help with all of these green cards. So we will have the tools in games 2 and 3 to help combat what this deck is doing, but to be honest, it is going to be pretty difficult. It doesn't necessarily help that we're drawing Spell Pierce in a matchup where Spell Pierce is almost useless. This deck can play Collected Company though, so maybe the Spell Pierce actually will do some work. We'll find out. Nope. Spell Pierce will do nothing. I lied. Spell Pierce will do absolutely nothing. Old Growth Troll and Yorvo. Oh my. Looks like they just pressed a button. They did not give us a chance to use our card. And I will be honest, I don't know that I see how we're really going to get out of this. So this might be one where I just scoop it up and move to game 3. Because we're taking, what, 13, 14 if we attack with this Watcher. But we can't really block profitably with it anyway. We're at 15. So yeah, let's just move on to game 2. So that is a rough matchup, especially on the draw. The only real upside to that matchup is that, honestly, we just don't really see it anymore. So it comes up a lot less often than it used to. So that's really our, I guess, saving grace, if you will. So what do I not really want here? I don't necessarily want Lofty Denials. Even on the play, they're a little medium. I'll take out another one, and I'll put in one Isolate. So Isolate is okay here because it can help against the Elvish Mystics and the Llanowar Elves and stuff, but realistically it's the worst of the options to deal with their stuff. We definitely want the Sealaways and the Silk Wraps a lot more, and Aether Gust does deal with basically their entire deck, which is really nice. So Spell Pierce does help with exactly Collected Company, but even we saw there, like, they just jammed out to Coco before we could untap, which is smart on them because we did have the counterspell to deal with it. So good job on our opponent for doing so, but it does make us a bit sad. So here we don't want Spell Pierce, we don't want Remorseful Cleric, and we don't want Lofty Denials, but we do want cards like Seal Away. We do want cards like Silk Wrap. We do want cards like Aether Gust especially. And we're willing to put in one of Isolate, but to be honest, Isolate's still a little bit of a medium option against this blue-green aggressive deck. So this is going to be what we submit for game 2 here. And let's see if being on the play helps us a lot more. So we actually do have a pretty decent line on the play here. We have access to a good turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 line. We are regretting that Temple of Enlightenment comes in tapped with this specific hand, because I have to cut myself off of either turn 1 or turn 2 to enable myself to play Empyrean Eagles on turn 3. So that is a huge downside here. So what I'm actually going to do is cut myself off of, I think, the turn 1. Okay. Do I want that? I do want that. So the reason I want this is because what I can do here is turn 2 Rattle Chains, because they already don't really play spot removal. And then turn 3 can contain an Empyrean Eagle. Turn 4 with this Glacial Fortress can contain both an Empyrean Eagle and a Spectral Sailor. Now, this doesn't necessarily help us in any way other than, well, just racing for damage, but it does give us the most productive version of a clock we have access to. So we're going to go ahead and play our island. This way our Glacial Fortress can come in untapped, and we can now play Rattle Chains at end of turn, untap, have Empyrean Eagle, and just kind of start attacking. And that's going to be our best way to make sure that we're able to at least try to play the game right along with them. So here they can play a Steel Leaf Champion, an Old Growth Troll, any 3-drop really. They can even play Aronis if they have it. Okay, so they do play an Old Growth Troll. I'm going to play my Rattle Chains, and we will be the first ones to attack here, so that's nice. But we do need to be a little wary here, just because they still can play cards like Decisive Denial, Primal Growth, any of those type of things that allow our opponents to fight our creatures, because our creatures are still going to be a lot smaller than this 4/4 Old Growth Trill. But they're already at 15, so if they don't have things to fight, then our clock here is actually pretty respectable starting next turn. So let's see what, if anything, they have here. They're playing a Steel Leaf. Ooh. And a Mausoleum Wanderer is really nice too. So Mausoleum Wanderer is especially nice because it can counter a Collected Company next turn. Here I'm just going to play Empyrean Eagle and kind of make the clock their problem. I can flash in this Mausoleum Wanderer since Rattlechains gives it flash, and my Mausoleum Wanderer will actually get to counter this Mystical Dispute. So nice try, opponent. And we're going to take them to 7. I'm sorry, we're going to attack them for 7 and take them to 8. So, yeah, that Mausoleum Wanderer was clutch. So now they got to deal us 16. Oh, 6. Okay, what's our opponent coming at us with? 9 damage is coming through, so I'm currently going to 7, assuming nothing else happens. So I'm just going to take that. Okay. Now let's see what they come up with. Is it just a Coco? A Shifting Ceratops. Okay, that's actually fine because they can only give it reach and block 1 creature. However, I'm attacking with 3. So, to be completely honest, I don't care. They can block one of these Empyrean Eagles and they still take 7 to the dome, or block this Rattlechains and still take 6 to the dome. And they're at 6, so nice breeding pool opponent. Alright, game 3, let's go. Yeah, no changes here. So, being specifically on the draw changes nothing about the way I want to play this game. So we're just going to resubmit the deck. So let's see if we can win another game on the draw here. Okay, so this is going to be another one of those hands where I am regretting the fact that Enlightenment comes in tapped again, but we get to keep our hand of 7 cards. We've got, we've got 1-drops, we've got a piece of removal, and we've got an Enabler and Watcher of the Spheres. They also don't have a turn 1 elf, which is nice. So, ooh, Shacklegeist is also pretty sweet. Give me a land. Thank you. So, for what it's worth, this hand does have the ability to play a decent amount of Magic. And realistically, that's all I want. If I can play a decent amount of Magic, I am usually quite happy with a hand. So here I'm going to start off with Watcher of the Spheres because that's going to give us the most explosive capability. And next turn, we have a lot of options. We can play Seal Away on this Werewolf Pack Leader plus play Shacklegeist for 1 mana. We can play Empyrean Eagle plus Spectral Sailor, Empyrean Eagle plus Shacklegeist. There's a lot of really good options, assuming we get to untap with this Watcher, which may or may not even happen. So let's... Okay, so it looks like they're just playing some big 4-drop, or big 3-drop. It is a big 3-drop. Okay, that's fine. So we have another Empyrean Eagle. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is cast our friend Empyrean Eagle and cast Shacklegeist and just kind of make it really their problem. So this is going to be a 4/4. Shacklegeist is going to make it a 5/5. We get to attack, which is awesome. And our Shacklegeist will get to tap down the Old Growth Troll as well. So they get to just take a bunch of damage, cry about it, and then not even get to attack with their big drop. They do still have the option of either land plus Coco or just straight up making something fight one of our creatures, and that will be sad times if that's what happens. But for now, we get to tap our 2 spirits, tap down this Old Growth Troll, and then see if that's really good enough to let us cross the finish line, which it may very well be, depending on what our opponent's holding. We are Inscription. That's a fight card. Okay, sure. That's fine because it's still not attacking. So we knew that we couldn't do anything about a fight card anyway, so whatever. So let's do that. Untap. Give me a land. Nope, but that's still really good. So here what I can do is Supreme Phantom, and that's going to take my Watcher up here. Let's see. Oh, is this a Mystical Dispute? Is that what they're holding? That's fine if that's what it is. It is a Mystical Dispute. That's fine. Nope. Instead, I will just play the other one. Mwahaha. So now we're going to take them from 13 all the way to 6. And since we're still at 14, this is really just kind of their problem. We've got a lot of creatures to help participate here. We've got a seal away in case we need to kind of hit an emergency exit button. And I'm not going to do anything about this attack. I'm just going to let this rock. They can draw their card. The only thing that is really dangerous is what? Land plus Collected Company, but that doesn't solve the problem that we're currently presenting. Sick. So we actually beat a pretty hard matchup in the green-blue deck, because as we saw, like, they have a really respectable clock and just like turn 2 4/4s. They have Mystical Dispute. They have removal for our creatures, and sometimes we just can either draw a million lords and kind of overpower what they're doing, or in the example of the last game where they wanted to Mystical Dispute our lord and stop our plan, our creatures can serve as counterspells to make sure our plan is still going. So look at us being 2-0. Alright, so we got round 3, we get a die roll, and a mostly acceptable 7 cards. Alright, cool, I'm in there. So we're going to keep this hand. We have absolutely no idea what El Trenco's playing, but we have a reasonable Spectral Sailor, Spell Pierce into a Spell Queller draw here, so provided we just draw more gas and not lands, this is a pretty good times keep as far as keeps go. So let's see what our opponent's doing. Another Zagoth Triumph. Alright, so realistically I'm probably playing against another Niv-Mizzet deck. So what I want to do here is play the Temple of Enlightenment holding up Spell Pierce. That way, next turn I can play Supreme Phantom plus holding up Spell Pierce, or simply hold up the Spell Queller, either way. And Empyrean Eagle is actually going to be a pretty good follow-up if I don't have to use my Spell Pierce before turn 4. So I actually like where this is going. Okay, so what do we got going on here? Is this a Sylvan Caryatid? It is. Okay. I will do nothing about that. And I'm just going to go ahead and play my lovely blue source here. So now we can do this and really just kind of see what piece of removal or something else they really try to play here. If they play exactly what in Omnath, I'm a little sad about that since we can't Spell Pierce in Omnath, but most other cards we probably have covered with a Spell Pierce just fine, and then we can untap and then the world's kind of our oyster from there, hopefully. What is that, Abzan? Yeah, that's Abzan. Okay, so they have everything but red currently, unless you include this. Lots of colors and lots of options for our opponent. Prismari Command. Okay, so I am going to Spell Pierce that, because no good comes of that card resolving. The only real downside to us using Spell Pierce there is that... Oh, never mind. I lied. I was going to say that we don't have a solution currently to a copy of Bring to Light, but, well, looks like I lied. We have a Lofty Denial, and that covers it just fine. So here, if we don't have to use Spell Queller on a spell, I might still just play it as a 3/4 attacker at end of turn, but I have a suspicion that I am going to end up using it this turn here. So let's see what our opponent's looking to do to us. They search forests. Okay, looks like they are in fact casting a Bring to Light, which I'll be pretty happy to use a Lofty Denial on. Are they retapping this for red instead? Tulsamir. I would also rather not deal with that. So unfortunately Tulsamir does cost 5, so I don't have the ability to use Spell Queller on it, but Lofted Denial works. Still good enough. Honestly, if I had a Rattle Chains, I would rather have had that to deal with the same card, but I'll still take 2 Spell Quellers and a Empyrean Eagle as a follow-up. This is still not bad. Okay. What nonsense is this? Opponent. Oh, a Vanishing Verse. Why did they target the Spectral Sailor instead of Supreme Phantom? Are they trying to get me to... Yeah, that's weird. That's weird energy. I'm going to use the Spell Queller on it anyway, because most follow-ups that they have with this color combination don't really scare me too much. They can have exactly, what, a Abrupt Decay here or something, which I guess could be pretty annoying. A Clothis, that's fine. I mean, I don't know about fine, but it's going to happen. So here, let's see what we have to follow up with. A Lofted Denial is pretty perfect. So we're currently doing 6 damage, and if we play Empyrean Eagle, that takes us to 9. 9 is not lethal. So I'm just going to attack for 6, take them down to 5. They go up to 7 with Clothis, and then I can Spell Queller something or untap, cast Empyrean Eagle, knowing that I'm drawing a counterspell to kind of cross the finish line here. So unless the card they draw here is pretty scary, like, I don't know, an uncounterable Supreme Verdict plus something to follow up with, then we're pretty well suited to win the rest of this game. But let's see what actually happens first. You know, don't want to count your chickens, etc., etc. Oh, they're just cycling? Sick. That is not gonna save you, opponent. Oh, that is lit. Let's untap here. Nothing in upkeep, so I'm just gonna jam. So if this is not exactly an uncounterable Abrupt Decay, we are pretty good with the Lofty we have in hand, because that's gonna get the W. So almost anything other than Abrupt Decay, please. Alright, sick. That is not an Abrupt Decay, so we will try to counter it. So they can have a Fatal Push with the Zagoth Triumph, and I guess that lets them live. But it looks like that's not what's happening here. Cool. So, and they did not reveal a Yorion, right? It's just regular Niv. Yeah, so this is just regular Niv to light. Which means Aether Gust and Spell Pierce are really all we want here. So we want Aether Gust and Spell Pierce. Remorseful Clerics are not that good. And once again, Shacklegeist is also not that great here. We do want the other 2 Spell Pierce. We also want the ability to spell. And we want the other 3 Aether Gust. So we will be pretty happy with this post-board setup. And submit. And our hand is a little bit of a poopy one-lander, so I'm going to ship this. This is not a poopy one-lander, so we will keep this. And we're going to put back one of these basic planes. And even though we're effectively skipping our turn 1 by playing Temple of Enlightenment again, I'm still pretty okay with the way this hand is shaping up. Maybe I'm not. Alright, cool. That plays. So now we can play Spectral Sailor turn 1, Rattle Chains turn 2, and Empyrean Eagle turn 3. And That's exactly what we want out of this deck, is just 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, so that we can maybe use one of our draw steps to... Are they using Mystical Dispute? They are. Cool. I would much rather they use I would much rather they use Mystical Disputes on cards like Spectral Sailor than on my more important cards like Empyrean Eagle. So let's see if that ends up kind of punishing them later. I will use the Rattle Chains just as a card to help develop a clock here. Too many lands. So let's see if this helps us out. And the cool part about this is if they play something that we don't necessarily care about on their turn here, we can just go ahead and flash an Empyrean Eagle, thanks to our friend Rattle Chains here, which I'm going to do either way. But let's see if maybe this doesn't catch another dispute, or... Are we seriously just going to get to untap? Oh, okay. They're doing something. Mortify. On the Rattle Chains, not on the Empyrean Eagle. Okay. I guess they're more worried about my ability to have flash than anything else. That's not bad. So I'm going to go ahead and get to start attacking for 2 here. And if their card that they're going to play here is Niv Mizzet when they untap with a red source, then I'm going to get to Aether Gust that, untap, and then try to help, you know, develop myself with a respectable clock. So fingers crossed on that's what actually happens. I can't do anything about that, so whatever. They name Odd, my Empyrean Eagle goes away. I get a little sad about it, and then I get to untap and immediately cast another, so... Let's see if this is any help. So, Aether Gust is clearly not bad, and a Sylvan Caryatid. I actually will Aether Gust this because they're missing land drops and they don't have a red source. So let's see if that actually does anything for me here. And it is important that they did put that on the bottom of their deck, not the top. So I'm going to play this with 3 lands open, skip over their Mystical Dispute, and I guess be mostly okay with that. So normally I would hold this Temple of Enlightenment in hand to kind of bluff a counterspell or something, but I actually want the Scry. So, oh thank God. Alright, go away. So we're going to put that at the bottom, and then kind of see if these 2 creatures are kind of good enough to get the job done. Usually they are. Ooh, that's great. So, a Selfless Spirit protects us against Supreme Verdict and most other sweepers. It does not protect us against Shadow's Verdict, which is, it's a problem. Like, if they see Shadow's Verdict, then it just kind of sucks to be us. But any other sweeper, Selfless Spirit makes me pretty happy. So let's see if... No! Cast anything other than Shadow's Verdict, please. That looks like a Bring to Light into Shadow's Verdict. Oh man. Alright. Looks like we're, sad times population us. Please just cast like a Supreme Verdict. Like, there's no way they actually cast a Supreme Verdict, but, you know, we can hope. Oh, what? Oh, yes, that's allowed. They're casting Valky? What? Sure, so you take one of my lords. Okay. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not exactly happy about it, but all things considered, I'll shut up and take it. So here I'm just gonna finish off Valky, attack their face, and then I even get to play Spectral Sailor and draw a card next turn. So, like, they do get to play the Empyrean Eagle as a blocker, which is annoying, but whatever. Oh, that's... I will consider that a surprise, yeah. Alright. They're playing an Omnath. So, I can one, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. I only have one. This list does not have Mystical Dispute, which is one of the things I would immediately fix about this, but whatever. It doesn't have it, so it's what it is. So here they're going to get to go to 11, pop this, make mana with it, and still cast like an Empyrean Eagle or something else. So, little bit of yikes incoming, but let's see if we can navigate this. Oh, and a Niv Mizzet. Uh-oh. Ruh-roh. What all did we get? They got Bring to Light, Abrupt Decay, Dreadbore. So, some pretty good cards. So, we get to play this. Draw a card. It's an island. That is not helpful. Spell Pierce, you're a little late. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're a little late. Okay, so how do we get out of this? I think the honest answer is that we probably don't. I think we should move to game 3. Man, if either of these showed up a turn earlier, that'd be so good. Like, even the Valky didn't really matter. I mean, it mattered, but like... grr. Oh well. So let's move on to game 3 here. But we are going to keep the same sideboard configuration, even though we saw the Niv Mizzet and the Omnath. Both of those are cards that are still covered by the Aether Gust, so I'm not going to mess up the configuration we have here. I think I'm okay with this. Oh, that was so close. I'm still really surprised that they chose to get Valky instead of a Shadow's Verdict there, because to be honest, the resolve to Bring to Light really should just end the game on us. So let's go ahead and play first here, and the hand is acceptable. So we've got 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, things we all like, and again, the fact that this land comes into play tapped, this has been honestly the worst part of playing this deck. So the first thing I think I would do upon altering this, oh, that's pretty good actually, is changing out of comes into play tapped lands, but we already kind of covered that earlier, so like we did know that the mana was easily the biggest issue with blue-white. But even still, like, this is still a more than acceptable line of draws here. So the Selfless Spirit's obviously pretty nice, and what we want here going forward is going to be a couple of counter spells just so that we can have access to... oh, that's not bad. So that we can have access to nicer things. Like, we want to be able to... and if they Mystical Dispute this, they Mystical... I already can't do anything about a Mystical. That's fine. So I'll just walk my way into that. So we do want a couple of counter spells. We want to be able to, you know, take care of Omnath, Niv Mizzet, Bring to Light, stuff like that. So what's this? Thoughtseize, that's fine. I actually do not mind when these decks try to Thoughtseize us, because all of our cards, as far as they are concerned, are usually the same thing if they're all creatures, and if they're going to take 2 damage for us, that's actually helpful, because that, you know, we get to cross the finish line that much faster. So they probably should take the Rattle Chains to help protect from some kind of spot removal, or if they're holding a... okay, so that means they're holding a Niv Mizzet, because they don't want me to bounce it off the table, which is also fine by me. So here I'm going to play the Empyrean Eagle, and doing it pre-combat like this, they can have another Mystical. I can't do anything about another Mystical, so I'm not going to try. But this also doesn't tell them that I have the other island, because I just want to play the Spectral Sailor here and keep developing at least the clock that I can. I'm still pretty okay with the way that went. So if this is just like an Omnath, then I guess I cry about that, but I already don't really have a solution to that. Yeah. So they're going to get to play their Omnath. I cry about that a little bit. And we pretty desperately need a counterspell here, because I don't want to just... woo! Let's go. So they do still have a lot of mana next turn if they have access to a a Fabled Passage, but if they don't, then we can develop Rattle Chains plus Counterspell, immediately hit them for 5, go to 6. If this is just a Thoughtseize, I'm just going to let that resolve. Like, I'm not countering this because I want them to go to 9. They do have the land so that they can go back up to 13. And it's a Fabled Passage. Okay, so, like, there just wasn't much I was going to be able to do about that. Oh no, are we losing to one of the Omnath starts? I hope not, I think so. I think this is going to be one of those Omnath games. Which kind of stinks, because, like, having the Empyrean Eagles before the, Yep. They had to bring the light, too, so, stinky times all around. So, okay, so here's the Shadows verdict that I actually thought they should have had earlier. So, there's really not much we're doing about this. I think I'm going to give it 1 or 2 more draw steps, and then we're just pretty much dead from here. I will try to see what else happens of this game, but we're pretty dead. And okay. They're at 17. Our creatures are dead. We have no hand. Sad times population us. Can we draw our way out of this? What are you casting, opponent? Oh, they just have another Omnath. Okay. So they're just going to go ahead and draw another card and kind of flex their muscles on us. And we drew a land, so I'm okay conceding this game. So we do go to 2-1, which is a little bit sad times, but honestly, we had the tools there, and just the hand didn't really shape up. So, well, it's kind of what it is, but hey, 2-1. Alright, so we got round 4 as our Challenger deck here. We did get another die roll, which is nice, but also another 1-lander, which is not nice. So let's mulligan this away, and this one's not that bad. So we get to put away the basic planes here, keep a 2-drop, follow-up, counterspell. So all things considered, this is not that bad. So let's play our Temple, put that on the bottom because we definitely do not want that, and see what our friend opponent is playing. Alright, so Spire Bluff Canal usually means they're playing, oh, what's that deck? I can't think. Phoenix, duh. So Phoenix means that I'm not going to walk my Watcher of the Spheres into just like some Wild Slash or Shock or Bone Crusher Giant or whatever effect. What I can do is play Watcher of the Spheres next turn and not do anything about this. That's whatever. They can have that. And I can play Watcher of the Spheres next turn and protect it with either a Rattle Chains for 1 or a Spell Pierce on it. So, oh, come on, another Plains? I specifically put you at the bottom of the deck twice. So, this is a hopefully well-protected Watcher of the Spheres, so let's see what happens here. So we see Lightning Axe, Sweltering Suns, okay. Are we casting a Lightning Axe? What are we doing here? I mean, if so, I have a Spell Pierce, so that's what I'm going to do to protect my Watcher here. But let's see what happens. Oh, the cool thing about the Challenger deck against this, too, is that this version of the deck, even though most versions of Spirits usually do not play it, this version of the deck happens to play 2 copies of Remorseful Cleric, and that actually does some solid work against Arc-like Phoenix. So we're going to make this Watcher of the Spheres a 3/3 in response to the Wild Slash, so that's going to basically have no text here, and we're going to get to untap with, ooh, nice, we're going to get to untap with 2 counter spells. So I am going to play the Watcher to pump my other Watcher up to a 3/3 attack for 5, and hold up the choice of either Lofty or Spell Pierce. Since they missed their land drop, I'm still pretty okay with just like pressuring the board and really kind of making this their problem. So let's see what nasty follow-up things they have here. They have an Abrade. So I'm going to use the Spell Pierce on the Abrade. And if we draw a 3-drop like Spell Queller next turn, honestly, so be it. Okay. A Mausoleum Wanderer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play this now so that I can pump both Watchers, even though I can play at instant speed with Rattle Chains. I'd rather just attack for the 8. So this will take him down to 7, and now I've got the combination of Mausoleum Wanderer and Lofty Denial to kind of play double counterspell duty against this spell-based deck. So we're in a pretty good scenario here, especially since we currently have exactly 7 damage on the table. They're at 7 life. Good times population us, at least hopefully. So let's see what kind of nonsense they try to use to come back here. Do we have nonsense? Do we have nothing? Do we just have, like, I don't know, a hard cast Phoenix? That sometimes happens. Our opponent's pretty deep in the tank here, so my best guess here is that they have next to nothing, which I would obviously love seeing as their opponent. Chart a Course. I do not care about Chart a Course. So they can, in theory, put Arclight Phoenix on the, onto the table, and they got nothing. Sick. So against Phoenix, things we want. Seal Away is not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. Spell Pierces, Aether Gusts. Okay, so cards that I don't really want. Spell Queller is one that I am very medium on against this deck. Brazen Borrower is another one that I'm very medium on against this deck. And I don't hate the idea of just the Aether Gusts. Lofty Denial is also pretty medium. And I would rather have Spell Pierce as a 1-mana answer instead of the 2-mana answers. So the reason Spell Queller is not that great against this deck is because they have a lot of targeted removal that makes Spell Queller very easy to kill for them. So they have Lightning Axe. Out of the sideboard, they can have things like Rending Valley, which is uncounterable, deal 4 damage to a white or a blue creature. They also just have like a bunch of other stuff, like they have Abrades and Sweltering Suns and Anger of the Gods, things like that. So Spell Queller is not a very reliable counterspell against that deck because they just have a ton of ways to kill a Spell Queller and immediately get their thing back. So I find it to be not that great here. Brazen Borrower is fine, but in this matchup, it's also easy to kill as a creature, which, I mean, let's be real, that is our whole deck, but we don't really want to lean into things that are easy to kill. But also, bouncing cards back to their hand against the Phoenix deck kind of plays right into their natural game plan, because they're already looking for fuel to discard with things like Chart a Course, things like Lightning Axe. So we don't really want to be putting their cards back into their hands. We want to be dealing with them, like, you know, once and for all. And the other card that I'm medium on here is Lofty Denial, because Lofty Denial, like, we have access to Spell Pierce, so, like, the Lofty Denials are okay, but not, like, just the super best thing to be doing. We have Spell Pierce, which is just more efficient removal, or rather more efficient counter spells. We have the Aether Gusts, which help solve the problem of, like, the Anger of the Gods, Sweltering Suns, but also onboard things, like it solves Crackling Drakes and Phoenixes, whether they have resolved or whether they're still on the stack. So I like that card a lot better here. And oof, yikes, here's a pretty big complaint about the mana base. Let's mulligan this away. And this one looks a lot better. Also, Remorseful Cleric against the deck that wants to take Phoenixes out of the graveyards is, like I said, pretty sweet. So let's do that. And let's see what we got against our Phoenix opponent here. Alright, so they have a Mountain, which, again, every time I put these at the bottom, they show right back up. So them playing Mountains first usually tells me that they have things like Wild Slash in hand, and Thing in the Ice is annoying, but we can play around that. So let's start with doing nothing. So I have the ability to hold up a Lofty Denial and see if this is going to be good enough to get me into something like a Strategic planning. Okay, I will do nothing about that. So Thing in the Ice is going to be pretty annoying, and this is going to be one of those scenarios where I do cry a little bit about not having put into Seal Away, but now that I know they're playing Thing in the Ice as their build, I can put Seal Away back in if there is a Game 3. So I'm going to play Rattle Chains, and they can just like start using removal spells to both get this off the table and tick down their, oh, that's annoying, and tick down their Thing in the Ice, but I have a feeling that this is not a plan that I'm going to be able to do anything about right now anyway. So let's play Remorseful Cleric. And Remorseful Cleric will be able to, at the very least, take care of the Arclight Phoenix that's in the graveyard right now. And that'll make it so that our only real problem will then be the Thing in the Ice. This is still a real problem, but I can at least make it so that it's our only problem. Alright, so I am going to pop this in response to that kill spell. Get that Phoenix out of their graveyard. And they do not have another spell? Yes, they do. Okay. So if this is just like another copy of Phoenix in the graveyard, then it is. I think this is reasonable to go to Game 3. Okay. So, now that we know that they're doing the Thing in the Ice thing, let's Seal Away in, and I'll take out 2 of these Spell Pierces. We do also have Silk Wraps, but the only thing Silk Wrap does is solve Thing in the Ice. It doesn't do anything about Crackling Drake or Demi Lich if they're playing that, or Arclight Phoenix, where Seal Away helps it with all of those problems. So that's why I would rather have Seal Away than Silk Wrap, even though Silk Wrap deals more nicely with exactly Thing in the Ice. So yeah, let's be on a play here, and we'll keep 7 cards. Nice, nice. That's a good start. So we're going to go ahead and play our island here. That unlocks our Glacial Fortress. And then starting on turn 2, we have a decent amount of things that we can play. So let's see what happens here. Okay, we have a Watcher of the Spheres, but I don't really know that I want to play Watcher of the Spheres into this basic mountain. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and play the Supreme Phantom. If their kill spell in hand is exactly a Lightning Axe, then honestly, so be it. I wasn't going to do anything about that anyway. But if it was a Wild Slash, or if they have to wait until next turn to play an Abrade, or anything else that only does 2, then this is a pretty sweet play. But it looks like they have a Lightning Axe, so... ugh, alright. Upside to that, though, they also had a Magma Spray. So even though they did get to kill our turn 2 play, I'm still pretty okay with the way that shaped out, because we still, you know, we know that we did the right thing. They had the kill spell for the spell that we cared most about. So here, what I can do is play... I can just play Empyrean Eagle. Yeah, alright. Let's just use our mana the most that we can right now. And if we draw another land, we can have Watcher plus something. If they start trying to just like ultra power out Thing in the Ice, we have access to the Seal Away to solve that problem. So there's a lot of play that we actually have this game. And if we draw a white source, then we have access to something like Watcher plus Selfless Spirit. So there's a lot of things that we can actually do, even in the face of this Thing in the Ice. So let's see what this iteration's looking to do here. Wild Slash entered the exile zone, and they didn't see a land off of it? What? Alright, well, that doesn't suck. So, what do I want to do here? They have to play 3 spells. So I think I just want to play this Selfless Spirit then. This way, if I get to go ahead and untap with these two creatures in play, and they can't power out a bunch of spells, then I've got a pretty respectable clock. I would really like to have like a Rattle Chains or something else to... Is that Magma? Yeah, alright. And I can't do anything about that currently, so I guess I'll just do this and then give my Empyrean Eagle indestructible. Upsetting, but it's what it is. Okay, that's not the land I asked for, but it's not bad. So here I'm actually just going to kind of hang out for the rest of this turn here, because what I think is going to happen is that this has been holding up a Mystical Dispute basically this entire time, so I'm not going to give them a reason to be able to play it. Instead, what we can do is have them cast 2 more spells, flip this thing, and if they do the work to do that, I can then have Seal Away to solve this thing in the ice, but also I can have Spectral Sailor as a follow-up play. So what'll end up happening after all of this is that hopefully I'll have a creature and they will not. Okay, planning did not see a Phoenix, which is nice. And... so I'm going to go ahead and play this Spectral Sailor, see what they do about it. Is this the dispute I saw? It is the dispute. Okay. So now they flip this. My Empyrean Eagle comes back. I can't pay for Spectral Sailor, but I'm okay with them using the counterspell on that. And here I'm just going to jam out Watcher of the Spheres, and if they attack, I can follow up with the Seal Away. And this isn't even that bad either, because if they don't attack and I draw a land, then I still have the option to go like Shacklegeist, Empyrean Eagle into Seal Away, and that still makes them not have a Awoken Horror to really play Magic with. So I'm hoping that this Seal Away is going to just, well, seal this problem away and really help us seal this game here. Expressive Iterations are powering their draws up pretty hardcore though. So let's see. They have an Abrade, okay. Annoying, but I can't really do too much about that. Well, that's actually false. Yes, I can. I can put it back on top of their deck. Let them attack for the 7. I actually think I do want to do that. I would rather keep this Watcher on the table for 1 more turn and then follow up with like Empyrean Eagle plus Seal Away and make them solve 2 problems on the table rather than just worrying about the 1. Or I can do everything. So this loses to a Sweltering Suns effect, which is pretty annoying. But if they don't have exactly a Sweltering Suns effect, then we're looking pretty lovely. They're at 9, and I've got quite a bit of damage on the table. We have 8 currently, so any flyer will really seal the deal. So yeah, fingers crossed, I guess. Treasure Cruise, ruh-roh. Yeah, and that's one of the sweet things about Pioneer. You can play some really busted cards in this format because of the fact that fetch lands are not legal here. You can play Treasure Cruise, Dig Through Time, Deathrite Shaman is legal in Pioneer. There's a lot of really powerful stuff. That's okay. I'm like, as long as it's not exactly an Anger of the Gods or a Sweltering Suns, I'm not that sad. I'm still pretty sad about my lords dying, but it could get worse. This is still not great, but it is not as bad as it could have been, considering that they did start off with like a thing in the ice on turn 2. So let's go ahead and attack here. Take them down to 7. And scry me a good card? No, go away. So they have 4 cards in hand, which is a lot. So we are doing some pretty savage finger crossing here. So we did dodge the Anger of the Gods that I was trying to dodge earlier, but we also just like caught them with a bunch of removal spells, so that is like half of their deck. And they do have a Phoenix, so they only need to cast one more spell to revive that. And there's the spell, so they're going to get their Phoenix back. They're going to get to keep that as a blocker. And we are going to be pretty hard pressed to kind of get past what they're doing here. So let's see what happens. A Spectral Sailor. Okay, that's actually not even bad. So in theory, what we can do is... Actually, I'm just going to play this now. Okay, cool. So this way, I can draw a card, and I can tap down this Phoenix before combat so it can't attack. And then, in theory, we will be able to attack. So that's kind of what we're hoping to do here. I will also, like I said, get to draw a card with this. And the reason that I didn't want to let them untap before casting my Spectral Sailor is because if they untap and they have like an Abrade or some other 2-mana removal spell in hand, and I cast Spectral Sailor, they can respond to the spell by killing off my Shacklegeist. That'll make it so that I would not have been able to tap down their Arclight Phoenix. But doing it on my own turn with the Spectral Sailor made it a lot more likely for me to be able to untap with both creatures in play. And this thing in the ice is going to be a little... probably too little too late, or at least I'm hoping. So what is this? Sweltering Suns. Okay. Obviously I don't like it, but let's try to draw a Spell Pierce. Damn it! Oh, so close! That's so close! No! Come on, Magic. Not like this. Ratchet Bomb. Huh. I don't know if I like that choice from opponent, but... Oh, is this what we're doing? Okay. So, they can put the Ratchet Bomb on 2, I guess, but that doesn't seem great as far as plans are concerned. Because, like, yes, it blows up our seal away, but their thing in the ice costs 2, so... Like, what are you really doing there, opponent? So this is going to get to revive their Arclight Phoenix, which is pretty annoying, because chances are their strategic planning is going to find a spell that finds a spell. The odds of that not happening are actually pretty low. So, chart a course, okay, yeah. So we are pretty dead if they find one more Phoenix, because we're at 13. This is going to flip into a 7, and they do find 2 Phoenixes, so that's exactly game if they have any spell. And that is any spell. So we're going to go ahead and concede here. And, that was unfortunate. Shoot. I'm a little upset about that. But, hey, whatever. 2-2, so let's see if we can salvage this league with a 3-2. Alright, so we got the last round as a Challenger deck here, and... we're going to keep this hand, although I am really hurting for lands that do not come into play tapped here. So we have Temple, Glacial Fortress, and we're against Burn. Oh, this is not going to end well. Alright. So Burn is already a pretty hard matchup, but we have... That's not a basic land. We have 3 lands that come into play tapped too, which is going to be a... Oh, what is happening here? Are we just like red-white aggro? Okay. Can't do much about that, so let's... Okay, well there's a basic. So what I'm going to do here is try to give myself the ability here to... Oh, perfect. To... let them attack with both. I want Spectral Sailor to be able to block Veteran Motorist, and if I'm lucky, I can untap and have Watcher plus Supreme Phantom available. Oh. Fudge. Alright. That's bad. So we take the 2, which we have a lot of finger crossing to do if we're going to get out of this. So we have this, and let's see if we actually get to untap with something. If they have basically any removal spell here, then we're in a pretty desperate spot. The upside, though, is that if we do get to untap, we have Watcher and another Supreme Verdict. A Supreme Phantom. We don't want Supreme Verdict. Actually, I wouldn't even complain about a Supreme Verdict right now, but that's not what we're playing in this deck. So if we can get out of this turn in relatively decent shape, then we might actually be okay-ish. But I feel like that's asking a lot. This Legion Warboss is kind of stuck throwing his minions to the wind, but maybe we get out of this. Let's see. Oh, that looks like a Chain to the Rocks. It is. Oh. Alright. What are you taking? You are taking the Watcher. Okay. So we're attacking with just those 2, so I guess I'm going to block one of them. So that's going to happen to my Supreme Phantom, and I realized that right after clicking. Whoops. So right now we're in the I'm bad and I feel bad about it mode. So what can we do about this? I can redeploy the same board, or I can just deploy the Watcher and hold up Lofty Denial. And I think I like that plan a little better, just in case they do come at me with like another War Boss. Or is Rabblemaster legal in this format? I don't even know. But if Rabblemaster is legal in this format, I don't want to deal with that either. So here, in theory, we block the War Boss, take 5, go to 9, and then we get to untap with Supreme Phantom plus Lofty? That seems ugly. I can also just block this, take 6, go to 8, but then they still have their War Boss. This is what I get for blocking with the Supreme Phantom last time, because I just had no business doing that. So yeah. Alright, well, we trade friends, but now they have a whole team to go along with it, and let's see what happens here. Another Firebrand, and we untap. 2 more Supreme Phantoms, okay. So, for a scenario that looks pretty bad, 2 Supreme Phantoms is probably the way to dig ourselves out of this. So, yeah, fingers crossed, I guess. Now what? Another War Boss. Okay, looks awesome. I mean, I'm lying. It does not look awesome. Okay, so here I'm going to block a 2/2, block this. I take 2, 3, 4, go to 5, so that this time I do have access to, oh my. Well, we've seen all 4 Supreme Phantoms this game, which means that I've got some profitable blocks. I've got a Lofty Denial. Tokens are not getting through. Legion War Boss can't profitably attack. If we draw something productive on this next turn, I might actually get out of this mess. This is bad, but we might get out of this. Alright, let's see if we can steal a game, I guess. What do we get? That is not conducive to us stealing a game. Can I attack? Attack them down to 15. They attack. 2, 4, 6, block 2. No, I cannot attack. Okay. So I wanted to see if I had the availability to attack safely with 1 creature, but here I think we really should just wait for 1 or 2 more actual cards. Nope. Not beating that. Oh my god. Oh, we just caught a whole foot in our ass. Okay. So, things we can do here. I do want Silk Wraps, and I do want Aether Gusts. Cards I do not want include Spell Pierce, Remorseful Cleric, and I honestly don't really want Brazen Borrower here. It's got a little text against exactly Winota, but meh. Oh, we have a Devout Decree. Never mind, I want Devout Decree. Yeah, I guess this feels okay. Yeah, this feels alright. So let's play with Aether Gust, because that just solves like most of their deck. We want the Devout Decree, because again that solves almost their whole deck. And then 2 Silk Wraps, which is nice. We don't necessarily want the Spell Pierces. If I could type. We don't want Remorseful Cleric. And we don't really want Lofty Denials. They're okay against exactly Winota, so we do want to keep, I guess, the other 2 in because they're the least bad of the bad cards, but they're not great. So let's see if we can get this, and this isn't bad. So I will keep this hand. We get to play a turn 2 Watcher. Maybe we get to untap and have another land draw. That way we can have like Shacklegeist plus Lofty, or like Shacklegeist plus Devout Decree, or even like a Rattlechains line available. So let's see if that's what ends up happening. The fact that we get to be on the play means that Lofty Denial and or Devout Decree might actually end up being useful too. So you are very good, but you're not a land. I need a land. So let's see what happens here. Foundry does nothing. Oh, okay. So let's see what our draw step contains. Another Shacklegeist. Not exactly what the doctor ordered, but I guess we'll give it a try. So if they just like spend their turn casting a removal spell on the Watcher, honestly, so be it. Oh, a Heart of Kirin. Okay. That's annoying. So I can spend next turn like having like Lofted Denial at something, which is okay. I do wish this was blue instead of white though, because giving myself blue instead of white gives me access to like a Spectral Sailor line or something else nice, rather than just like basically maybe I waste my turn, maybe I don't. So here I'm going to just cast a Spectral Sailor here. So let's see what, if anything, happens to my friends. Okay, no Flame Sweeper. Oh, well, there's my blue source. So I am going to cast just Shacklegeist and attack for 3 with my Watcher. This way, I don't have to worry too much about our opponents having something just completely egregious with their mana and or Heart of Kirin. I can tap down a threat if they're trying to kind of double up on cards this turn. There's a lot of work that we can actually do here. So they have a Veteran Motorist, which will let them crew this Heart of Kirin by itself. So I actually will go ahead and Lofted Denial the Veteran Motorist. Oh! Cool, never mind. Well, game 3. Alright. I guess we take those. I mean, we actually did have a plan that game, so alright. This hand, not bad. So we have Wanderer, Watcher, turn 3 stuff. And again, Temple of Enlightenment coming in tapped is just, it hurts my feelings, but we at least can play Magic like this, and realistically that's all I want. If I can get hands that just let me play Magic, I will usually shut my mouth. And the fact that we have a Selfless Spirit come off the top is actually pretty useful, because it lets this basic Plains with a Watcher line not just be completely useless. So let's see if we get to untap with this Watcher. If we do, great. If not, well, whatever, we tried it. So what's this? A Spellbinder. That's actually okay with me. The important cards on the table, they can put like the Brazen Bar in the exile zone, I guess, but okay. They took the Selfless Spirit. Okay, sure. Magic. So what do you cost? You cost 3. Nice game of Magic gathering us. So let's scry, see what we get. It's another tapped land. I do want a land. I do not want a tapped land. Seriously, these tapped lands are killing me. And the basic planes. Come on, deck. Just hurting my feelings here. So I will just let them have the Elite Spellbinder because I can't really do much about that. If their play is gonna be to just like cast a Winota, then I have a couple of responses to that. It looks like that actually is exactly the play here. Like, this is also a human, so like Winota doesn't even get proc this turn, but I think I'm just going to, yeah, let this rock. So okay, let's untap here. Okay, so we got the land that I asked for, which is really nice. Thank you, deck. And none of these cards are named Shacklegeist, which is just rude of the deck to not give me. But what I can do is play the Supreme Phantom, and this will give me access to attacks. I also have both Brazen Bower and Aether Gust to help settle the Winota itself. If they choose to block something, that's actually pretty okay with me. Ooh, I could just play the Brazen Bower. I think I actually like that. So the only way this really backfires is if the card in their hand is exactly like a Legion Warboss. Huh? Oh, did I tap a Plains? I did. So now this is going to be a 4/4. It's going to outpace this Elite Spellbinder. And they scooped! Okay, cool, never mind, even better. So that means that we actually dug a 3/2 out of this. So we managed to beat the Winota deck, which... okay. And I guess we have a little bit of takeaways here. So we got a 3/2 out of this, which means that I believe the deck is at least playable. And leagues are usually a lot harder than like your average Friday Night Magic tournament, which means that if we can dig 3 wins out of 5 matches in these relatively hard Pioneer leagues on Magic the Gathering Online, you can probably do a little better than that at your local F&M playing this deck. This was pretty exciting. So things that I would upgrade first, no matter which version of Spirits I was playing, I would probably go for the mana base first after deciding which build of Spirits you want to go with. The fact that we have a lot of basic planes in a base blue deck did hurt the deck a lot, and the fact that Temple of Enlightenment always came into play tapped actually did kind of mess up some turns and even some complete games. So this deck really just wants to be going, 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop on curve as often as possible, and the Temple of Enlightenment's coming into play tapped did kind of ruin that a few times. That's also why I hate Port Towns so much, because a lot of the time it will just do that. If you draw 2 Port Towns, then your hand is just terrible and it will always come into play tapped, and you can't really play Magic until turn 3 most of the time. But if you even have like 2 basic islands, you can play a lot of Magic. So there's not really much reason I would tell people to keep these come into play taps listed in the deck. So I would definitely decide on which version of spirits you want to play, and then the first purchases I would make would be to make the mana base better first, because A, those are usually the most expensive things in your deck anyway, but also having stable mana is what gives your deck the ability to play the most Magic possible, because as y'all saw, when we were able to play Magic, we were able to play a lot of Magic. In both of the matches we lost, we still were able to win games. We had a lot of play in all of our matches. Our sideboard cards were relevant, our plans generally worked, and this deck is respectable. So I think for the, probably 40 or 50 American, whatever this is going to cost when it actually comes out, I think it's a good purchase. I like this deck. So the fact that this was able to perform against a pretty competitive field on our very first try without any upgrades to the stock deck, that really speaks to the power level of the archetype as a whole. So I really hope that some of y'all, watch this and take away the fact that, hey, you can actually play this deck right out of the box and you can get some wins against real decks, because that's what we did today. So that's going to be really exciting to see more people wanting to play spirits after October 15th when this comes out. So that's going to be our video today on the Pioneer Challenge deck. And like I said, also give Bryant Cook a go too. That link will be right in the video description, because he did exactly this, but for the Lotus Breach deck too. I'm sorry, Lotus Field combo deck instead. So yeah, if you like what you're watching, as always, just make sure to like the video, sub to the channel, and I will see y'all on the next one.